Coming up on this episode of DL Weekly, we finally have an opening date for the Adventureland Treehouse. Space Mountain is back with some updates.
The new DVC bar is opening soon. Some voices are leaving the park. We conclude our talk with author J. Jeff Kober and more. DL Weekly starts now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome aboard the DL Weekly podcast. Please lower your head and watch your step while boarding. If this is your first time listening, we hope you'll check out our website at DLWeekly.net. If you have more time to spend, becoming an official weekly tier at DLWeekly.net/support is an especially good value. Thanks for traveling with us today, and we hope you have a happy and memorable listen to this week's episode.
Hello and welcome to this episode of DL Weekly for the week of November 1st, 2023. I'm Teresa Urban.
And I'm Tag Bushman. Man, I can't believe it's already November. Thank you to Brenda and Kurt for increasing your support and becoming an official weekly tier on our Patreon. Our supporters get some pretty fun perks like DL Weekly swag, bonus content, and access to our Discord community. As a reminder, since this is November 1st, if you are a supporter of ours, please make sure you go on to patreon.com, log in, and make sure your address is correct. So when we send out our holiday card, you can definitely make sure that yours arrives. A special thank you to Brittany R., Amanda S., and Courtney S. for your continued support. If you'd like some more Disney magic in your day, head on over to DLWeekly.net/support to join the community.
Well, you've heard us talk about our great experiences staying at the Howard Johnson in Anaheim. Well, we have partnered with them to offer our listeners some really cool discounts. Weekly tiers can get 15% off their stay, and Magic Keyholder weekly tiers can get 20% off. To take advantage of these discounts, head on over to DLWeekly.net and click on the Howard Johnson logo. Be sure to use the promo codes on the site to get the discount you qualify for.
Well, it is that time again for our friend Eric over at Concierge to catch us up on other Disney news.
Hello, everyone. This is Eric Johnson with Concierge, and welcome to the D180. While Ted and Teresa cover all things Disneyland, in the D180, we take a spin around the rest of the Disney universe, and we do it in 180 seconds. Let's jump right in. We start our adventure this week in Walt Disney World, where Disney has released its offers for members of our military. I don't normally start on a promo, but this is a big one for our active and retired service members. Most nights from January 1st, 2024 through December 20th, also 2024, have big discounts for military members. These are discounts on park tickets, and they're pretty great. If you qualify, make sure you get in touch with one of our planners to learn all of the details. All right, on to Epcot. Moana's Journey of Water is now open, and by all accounts, it's delightful. This is a walk-through attraction with interactive water effects throughout. It's a lush landscape with plenty to see and play with. Lines seem to be pretty reasonable for a new attraction, too. Give it a look when you next visit. And hey, if you started your day in Epcot, you can hop on over to the Magic Kingdom any time of the day you want. Well, assuming you're visiting on or after January 9th, 2024. Walt Disney World is lifting its park hopping restrictions on the 9th. No longer will you have to wait until 2 p.m. to take that monorail or Skyliner between parks. Also coming back to the Walt Disney World Resort, no reservations. For regular ticket holders, no reservations will be required. Sorry, annual pass holders, you'll still have to hold out for now. But finally, also the return of a full dining plan. If you're a Disney foodie, here's your pathway to savings. I'm super excited for all of this. Disney is making it so much easier for a casual guest to go to the parks. But if you want an expert on the parks, I think I might know a few people you could call. Okay, well, what's next? I wonder if there's a chance they'll make some changes to the Genie Plus system. Okay, time to talk about the Disney Treasure. I thought I was excited about a lounge themed after 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and another after the Jungle Cruise. I mean, I was actually excited, for real. Like, I did say a few of these ago that I would definitely spend the entire cruise in them. But now this, a haunted mansion bar? Holy smokes! Yep, Disney announced a bar themed after one of the best attractions ever crafted, the Haunted Mansion. Look for some of these non-alcoholic drink recipes on the Disney Parks blog if you want to get in the mood. You have to see the decor too. I might have to take an extra long cruise on this ship just to try all of these lounges for myself. Speaking of long cruises, the Disney Wonder officially set sail on its first voyage to Australia. These itineraries look incredible, so if you're in the mood for a few calm days at sea with another continent at the other end, give these trips a look. Disney Cruise Line has more Australian and New Zealand trips planned in 2024. And that's 180 seconds. I hope you enjoyed our quick spin around the rest of the Disney universe. If you would like to learn about these Disney adventures or just have a few questions, please come on over. Visit the social media and websites of both DL Weekly and us, their official travel planners, concierges. We look forward to planning something special for you and yours. I'm Eric Johnson, and this has been your D180.
Now let's get to the news.
Of course, the day after our last episode went live, as seems to typically happen with these things, we got the reopening date for the Adventureland Treehouse. The attraction will reopen on November 10th to guests and feature the mother's music den, the son's nature room, and the daughter's astronomer's loft. The kitchen, dining room, and father's art studio are at ground level. It'll be great to have this attraction back open and welcoming guests.
This is so exciting. It feels like, well, it has. It's been a very, very long time, but I'm really excited to see how this new space has been transformed and what the new updates are, what some of the throwbacks are. From reports I've heard, there is Swiss Capoca music that people have been able to hear. Ooh. Just with, with the construction walls still up. So it does sound like the Swiss Capoca will be back.
It's iconic.
I have to say, I'm so excited to watch the Fresh Bake video for David to be able to go walk through this attraction. He has been so excited and has been following updates very closely for this. So I am very excited to see him experience it for the first time.
I just hope that he doesn't do like sometimes we do, which is he has his hopes set so high that, you know what I mean? Like, it can be a disappointment just because you've, like, held it so high. But hopefully, in addition to that, he is a Magic Key holder. Yeah. And there is a preview announced for the Treehouse. So if you're a Magic Key holder and you happen to be at the parks on Thursday, November 9th, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., you can check in along the Rivers of America, across from the Golden Horseshoe, and a cast member will verify your Magic Key Pass and give you a wristband to be able to go up in the tree. Only one entry allowed per each valid Magic Key holder. I really hope that David gets to do this because I think he has to, right?
100%. 100%. So now, do you think that means like you only get to walk through it once, or you only get one wristband per Magic Key holder?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I feel like it means that you can only go through it once, but who knows? I mean, I guess we'll find out.
Well, Space Mountain returned from refurbishment last week with some notable updates and one miss, at least for now. On the exterior of the attraction, new projection effects and lighting really bring the mountain to life. Inside the attraction, new projection effects have been added, quote-unquote, in space for guests to experience. So the projection screens inside the attraction have been updated. The section of the attraction just after the first small lift hill is still completely dark, but our friend David from Fresh Baked reported that a cast member informed him that they are still working on it. So that's the lift hill where things kind of usually are like spinny feeling almost right before you go into the main mountain itself.
Well, that's having some issues, but it's you're looking at the cast member in the little booth, and you turn that first corner and you go up that little tiny hill, and then there's that little area that's flat that you go through, and it had the blue lights. Yeah. That is dark.
Oh, that's the part.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Although they did say that the part that you're talking about, that the second section seems dimmer and it needs to be brightened somehow.
I really like that lift hill. I don't know. And I think it's probably the intention, but it's very disorienting to me when it's regular Space Mountain. And so a lot of times I either have to like close my eyes or I have to like focus on something because I get a little too like...
Oh, I focus on the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like if I pay too close attention to the spinning, then I like can't tell like...
which way's up or down.
Yeah, I get like disoriented. So I've stopped like paying attention to that. But I do, you know what I really like? I really like it when it's the fourth, like May the 4th version, the Star Wars
Hyperspace
version.
Mountain?
Hyperspace Mountain. I love that tunnel for Hyperspace Mountain.
Well, yeah, because it's like you go into hyperspace.
Yeah, no, I think it's utilize better for Hyperspace Mountain than the weird spinny thing. I'm sure the spinny thing is supposed to like disorient you and be like, ooh, or, but.
So the question for you is, they've got these exterior projections now too, which I think looks really cool, but do you think that they're planning something else with this?
I think so.
Okay, because just on the face of it, adding some lighting is like cool, but not necessarily something that they necessarily needed to, which I'm always glad when they add
They've
stuff.
always had lighting. And so for this to be called more like projectors, I'm wondering if it's more high tech and if they're not going to be putting images up there instead of just light.
By the way, the link in our show notes at DL News Today, they have this concept art from Tokyo Disneyland, which is revamping their Space Mountain, and I had forgotten all about this, and I was like, man, the outside of that one looks sweet. Anyway, well, the new bar at the Villas at the Disneyland Hotel opens this week. The Palm Breeze Bar will serve salads, sandwiches, shareables, pizza, and more. It'll open on November 2nd, so just after this episode posts, and will be available to all guests staying at the Disneyland Hotel. Now, there was some questions on the Disney Parks blog post of people commenting saying, does that mean it's only available to Disneyland Hotel guests? But it's not clear, because in their post they say any guest staying there. So I have to imagine that it's open to just general people, but who knows?
They might be doing a limited time hotel guests only before they do general public, but who knows?
What do you think about some of this stuff?
It's unlike anything we have at the resorts right now. There's a lot of like fresh fish and seafood dishes that are going to be available here, which is wonderful. Not the typical. I feel like that's not. There's always seafood, of course, included on menus, but it seems like there's multiple seafood options, I guess would be a good way of saying it, because there's an ahi tuna. There's this concoction that's served in what looks like a martini glass that has fresh market fish, Gulf shrimp, snow crab claw, and avocado.
Ooh, that sounds good.
There's also a lobster roll, jumbo lump lobster
I mean,
roll.
it looks like actual, like, good lobster. Not.
Are you excited for this lobster roll?
I don't know. I was so disappointed by the lobster roll I had at Disneyland. I feel like I'm having, what was that thing at Pim?
Oh, the Pimnini?
The Pimini. I feel like I'm having a Pimini moment. Like, I feel like maybe I need to try the lobster roll one more time before
this is a different menu, too.
But there's so many other things on this menu that I think look good. Like this salad thing here that's like a taco salad.
That looks really good. The Southwest salad, yeah.
I mean, I'm not a fan of the beans, but the rest looks really great.
The thing that's really fun, this menu makes a lot of sense for its location, because it's a lot of more... It focuses more on light and refreshing foods than it does kind of like the heavy comfort foods. There are heavy comfort foods available, don't get me wrong. There is a burger, there's a chicken sandwich, there's even cheesy poutine with fries.
How do you feel about some of these non-alcoholic beverages like the pineapple cooler, which is pineapple shrub, orange juice, and grenadine?
I would try it.
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited about the 5550, which is the non-alcoholic version, which is a frozen coconut puree, peach juice, and mint. That just sounds like a really interesting combination.
These all sound pretty good.
I would like to try. Can we have a mocktail flight that we can order so then we can try all of these?
You know, they should offer more mocktail flights in general. Like the Lamplight Lounge should offer a mocktail flight.
That'd be great.
By the way, after this episode posts, Teresa will be posting on our Instagram. Yes,
on Instagram.
Because it was suggested to us on our public live stream last month, that we do a food section.
Yep. That we do like a foodie corner kind of thing. So we're trying to pick a name. So we are letting the weekly tiers decide. So the weekly tiers that were listening to that live stream threw in a bunch of really great suggestions. I put it out on Instagram and people could comment with some other really awesome suggestions. We had so many great suggestions that we actually had to pare it down before we did our final poll on Instagram. So we went to our Discord, so our Patreon supporters got to vote to whittle down what the top 4 are. And so we have the top 4. So be on the lookout for social media later this week for the final poll for the new foodie segment and what it's going to be named.
Yeah.
Because, right, we've got Trivia Land.
Yep.
So we need to be able to go someplace else to talk about more food stuff. So the thought there is that we're going to be kind of highlighting different foods around the resort. It won't be haphazard kind of how we've been doing it now in the news. It'll be more like by land, by restaurant, by snack cart, you know, kind of like how we did a tour of the parks with attractions. But yeah. but food. So we're looking fun.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Well, speaking of fun, for some people, a fun and scary cast member event was shared online recently. The Redwood Creek Challenge Trail Scare Maze was available to cast members attending the Grizzly Peak Halloween Carnival recognition event. The organizers of the event hope to continue to expand the Scare Maze and plus it more and more each year.
So I didn't even know. So for some reason, I thought one of the big complaints, at least a few years ago, was that there wasn't a lot of cast member parties. Because there used to be cast member parties all the time. There was cast member Christmas parties, cast member New Year's parties, cast members, everything.
Yeah.
And so I thought that they had gotten rid of that because people were complaining about that. But here we go. We have this cast member recognition event, and they do the Scare Maze inside the River Creek Challenge Show. And I'll tell you, some of these cast members did amazing on their outfits to be able to scare things. And I think it's really awesome. I'm so glad that they're doing this. Of course, cast members deserve all the recognition that we can give them. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. So if you want to see that, we have it linked in our show notes, but it was also on the Disneyland Ambassador Instagram page.
I think this is just so fun because, right, Redwood Creek Challenge Trail is already themed for the holiday season. And then this is just, adds a scary twist to what's already going on there. Because, of course, we've got Villains Grove and all the amazingness that is Villains Grove. And then they add in some of their own scare actors. And the other thing that's brilliant about this is I think a lot of times, this is just my thoughts. This isn't actually what it is. But I think the complaints were that they were getting rid of the cast member parties, like the Christmas parties. They used to close the parks totally down for those things. Whereas that corner of the park's already closed as long as it's a non-Oogie Boogie Bash night. Yeah. So it's an area of the park that's already not open for guests, that's already decorated for the season. I mean, so how perfect.
Well, this Halloween season, a Disney artist named Joe Yakovec has been at the Disneyland Hotel and the Grand California Hotel sculpting pumpkin. He was by the Fantasy Tower at the Disneyland Hotel from noon to 3 p.m. and at the Grand Californian from 5 to 8 p.m. He was there until October 30th, the day we record this. So unfortunately, we've missed him this year.
But you can go see all of his creations because they are still on display at the different resort hotels. And they are impressive. We carve pumpkins here. In fact, we just had our annual pumpkin carving party this past Sunday, and it took me, how many pumpkins I did? I did 5 pumpkins, and it took me like 6 hours, and that was with somebody else gutting them for me. And that's just, that's cutting. Sculpting is a whole different
Well, you had somebody
level.
at the party that sculpted.
Not to this extent.
No,
they just
but
did
Nathan did some
they did some shaving, But this is actually like, that was a pumpkin that they turned into what looks like a jar of frog's breath. So you've changed the entire appearance of the pumpkin.
Oh, yeah.
So the shape, it's amazing. Terry Hardin also does some amazing work with pumpkin sculpting. One of these days, it's on our Disney bucket list, or maybe it's like our side quest Disney bucket list since it's not a Disney specific event.
Sure.
Anyways, is to go attend one of her pumpkin sculpting classes because that would just be incredible.
Well, she did a very quick one at the Disneyana event, and in that limited amount of time, she only had like a half an hour. We got some really cool looking stuff. So I can't even imagine like an evening with her doing these things.
Or however long it is. Wild. It's so much different than your triangles and crooked grin jack-o'-lantern. Well, holiday tradition at Disneyland is returning this year, and the dates have already been released. The Candlelight Processional will take place on December 2nd and 3rd at both 5:30 p.m. and 7:45 p.m. each night. As usual, the narrator for the show has not been announced and will be a surprise for the night of the processional. There is limited standing room only behind the seating area for park guests, so unless you're a VIP, you will need to claim your spot very early in the day. In
fact, like very early.
We spoke to Patrice, who is a weekly tier, who has gone, I think she's gone twice now. And yeah, basically she goes at park open to go claim her spot. And thankfully she's makes friends. And like she said, it's really, really fun. But you can't really have a full park day and also expect to have seating or space for the Candlelight Processional.
If you want to hear her experience about the Candlelight Processional, you can go back and listen to episode 266, where we talked to Patrice about her day at the processional. Well, Disney Vacation Club announced the dates and registration details for the 2024 Moonlight Magic events at Walt Disney World and Disney California Adventure. These events are free for DVC members and include after-hours access to attractions, rare character meet and greets, entertainment, and more. For Disney California Adventure, the event will take place on January 29th, 2024. No further information was announced at this time. For more details, check out the link in our show notes.
These seem like so much fun, and like they'd be so cool because they also get like snacks and drinks, and plus you just basically have, it's an after hours party, so you get the park to almost yourself, and it's nighttime, which Tag loves the parks at nighttime. But if you had it your way, it would be at Disneyland.
Yeah.
But DCA is a great, I think it's a really good party park, if that makes sense.
They talk about these character meet and greets that you don't get to see very often, and in the link we have in our show notes, there's a photo from one of the Moonlight Magic events that happened previously, and there's a Kronk.
It's Kronk.
I didn't even know Kronk was a character.
I know. It's
Like,
so
I knew
fun.
he was a character, but like I didn't know he was in the park
Right, like
ever.
a meet and greet character.
I would die. I would love to have a meet and greet with Kronk.
That'd be so fun.
And Yzma. It'd be wonderful.
Yzma was at, I don't remember if it was a Moonlight Madness. She did do a meet and greet recently for something at the Disneyland Resort. And by recently, like sometime while we've been recording this podcast.
Okay.
So within the
Sometime
last like 5-6 years.
Sure.
There was something that she did. I don't remember if it was Halloween or if it was a Moonlight Madness or what the reason was, but there was an Yzma meet and greet.
Villains Night.
Villains Night. There you go. Another thing to add to the Disney bucket list.
Sure.
Well, for the last 32 years at Disneyland and 11 years at Disney California Adventure, you could count on one thing: the voices of Bill Rogers and Camille Dixon welcoming guests with their voices. The resort is going through some casting changes that caused Bill and Camille to move on to other projects. My heart kind of dropped when I read this news. Like, of course, at some point, Bill and Camille would not be the voices. And I want to say, I was going to say, Bill, it's been 32 years. That's the only voice that I've had from my visits to the park. So it's going to be it's going to be very strange.
Yeah, I would never have expected this. Now, this is not to take away from the wonderful work they've done. And they're wonderful people. Everything I've ever read about people, in fact, I think we have some weekly tiers that have hung out with them before, and they said that they were just amazing. They're like philanthropists and all this stuff. And I will say, when the last time we were in the park, one of the announcements, Bill was starting to sound a little old. Like, it wasn't as... There was just a change in his voice. You get older, it happens.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, ooh, I wonder how much longer he's going to continue to do this. And then this happened. Now, the real question I have is, who's going to replace them?
That's the hard question, isn't it?
That's going to be something
Well, I
interesting.
mean, it's something that is so familiar at the parks that you probably won't notice that you noticed it until it's changed.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Kind of like how the last time you were there, they were doing an announcement and you're like, ooh, this sounds slightly different. You know, it's something that you just have gotten so used to. Like, I don't even like... I was watching a special, kind of like a behind-the-scenes special, where it was showing their home studio and doing their recording. Actually, I think it's in the show notes that we'll have in here. Mice Chat has a link to it. And it was really interesting watching the kind of behind-the-scenes, but they were recording different things, and I was kind of like, it's never dawned on me that, before Fantasmic, yep, that's the voice of Disneyland. And before all of the different parades, all of the different... everything. It's their voices. You just kind of get used to it just being the voice. You kind of forget. I don't know.
And it's amazing that they are married.
Yeah, I think that's incredible.
I highly recommend anybody who's listening to go to the link in our show notes. There is a video called Happy Little Voices that have Bill Rogers and Camille Dixon and Brett Ewan doing this funny kind of daily...
Yeah. It
going
is
through their
fun.
day as the voices of the park, and it's very cute and fun. And
it's so fun.
Brett comes in and wants some pie, and they're kind of being funny about it. So it's very cute.
There's
I highly recommend
two
it.
really great videos that the Mice Chat article that will be linked in the show notes have that I would highly recommend. One's that behind the scenes video that I was talking about that kind of show like a day in the life.
Yep.
And then the fun little just for fun video that Tag was just talking about.
Yeah.
We're going to miss them, though, for sure. Best of luck to them on their future endeavors.
They're still doing voice work.
They're still doing voice work. They may still be doing voice work for Disney. It's just specifically park announcing is what's coming to an end.
A new Magic Key Holder exclusive perk is available at the Magic Key Terrace. A new medallion machine with exclusive designs on gold medallions was installed last week with 4 new designs. The classic Disneyland sign, the Pixar Pal Around, and Sleeping Beauty Castle are among these designs.
What do you think about these? Because I know how we were so excited about the Disney 100 medallions, and then we realized how many there were, so we quickly put a stop to that. But these look really fun because I really like the different designs. Like you mentioned, we've got Sleeping Beauty Castle, but my favorite is the classic Disneyland sign.
Yeah. My problem is I'm not a huge fan of just like gold things, so I actually prefer the silver things that we have.
Sure.
But these are cool, and they've got Magic Key Disneyland on them as well, so I think they're kind of neat. These medallion things are another cool like collectible that doesn't take up a ton of space and stuff like that. So, and there's only 4 of them, much easier to collect than the 100+ medallions that they were planning for.
Yes, much easier to finish out this collection.
DL Weekly announces the boarding of the Trivia Express, non-stop star speeder service to the moon of Endor. All passengers, please prepare for immediate boarding.
Welcome to Trivia Land, where we've got some great listener-submitted questions for you. How you feeling? You ready to tackle these questions head on and
we're ready.
See if you got the knowledge?
You know what? I'm going to be optimistic tonight. Why the heck not?
All right. Let's see how you do. Your first 2 listener-submitted questions will be from listener Tara F.
Ooh.
The first one being, along with soda bottles, there are several other vintage and antique items. We're talking about the Coca-Cola corner.
Coca-Cola corner.
Yep, going back to Coca-Cola
Tara, we've got more
here.
Coca-Cola corner
Along with
questions.
soda bottles, there are several other vintage and antique items, such as an outdoor thermometer shaped like a jumbo Coca-Cola bottle, glass straw dispensers, and a soda jerk hat. Among these is a metal plate with the painting of a fancy-dressed woman holding an empty glass to her closed lips. She sits at a small glass table in front of a wall of soda taps. On the table is a small note. What does the note say?
Oh, no.
That was quite a journey.
Oh,
that was quite a journey.
And I'm going to be generous and give a hint. The note references Coca-Cola, but it's more reminiscent of another name brand.
I don't know if that helped.
Oh, man. It's
a note.
References Coca-Cola.
But more reminiscent of another brand.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola. I'm loving it. I don't know.
All right.
McDonald's. I'm loving it. It's probably not even close.
I was going to say, I'm trying to think of like the period that it sounds like this woman's dressed in.
Sure.
I'm going to say it's a Disney tie-in. It has nothing to do with that because it's just a little Coke museum. I'm going to say like the happiest soda on earth.
Sure.
Not a bad guess. Tag, you gonna hit your mind card on that?
No, I've got the Coca-Cola. I'm loving it.
Oh, you're sticking with I'm loving it. All right. So we've got happiest soda on earth.
I mean, that works.
And I'm loving it. All right.
Tara, that's
final
mean.
answers.
Yes.
Final. It's as good as it gets.
All righty. And your second question from listener Tara F. We're going to take a trip over to DCA for this one. The Piston Cup display states that the Hudson Hornet achieved more wins than any other racer in 1952 with 27 wins. What do these numbers reference in the real world?
What numbers? There was 27 and what?
27 wins in 1952 on the Piston Cup display.
What's Flower Street? No, that's 14. Never mind.
That's 1400.
Yeah.
Or 1401.
1401.
Well, 27 must be like 1927. What happened in 1927? Was that Mickey?
How many Pixar movies are there?
Oh, God. Not 27, I don't think. At least not when Cars Land was developed, anyway. And then the other one was 52.
No, 51.
1952
2.
with 27 wins on the Piston Cup display.
That's got to be an address.
I don't know.
I'm going to say there's 27 Pixar films and 1952 is either an address or a room number of the Pixar headquarters.
I'm going to say 52 was the year John Lasseter was born. And 27 is the year... When was Mickey? Mickey did 100... That was right before COVID. So that's not
19.
right.
Yeah, 2019 is when that...
Yeah. So
No. Sorry. I think it was... Now I don't remember.
But it was before COVID.
1929.
So not 27. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know about 27. But 52, Lasseter...
1928. We're terrible.
That's okay. But it's still not 27.
Nope,
And you shouldn't
still
be
not
looking
27.
up stuff during trivia anyway.
Looking up Mickey Mouse's birthday.
Yeah, but that could help with trivia. That was going to be my answer. Anyway, John Lasseter's birth year, and I don't know what 27 is.
All right.
Maybe it was February 7th, 52. John Lasseter's birthday. I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so we've got February 7th, 1952, John Lasseter's birthday, and 27 films with a street address of 1952. Final answers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tara's really whipping us this week.
Tara sends tough questions. I'm going to give credit for that. Your third question, submitted by listener Donna S.
Oh, Donna.
What is the name of the caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland?
Oh, he has a name?
Yes.
He's not just the caterpillar? I'm not trying to be a smart aleck. I thought that that's what it was.
In the book, he answers to two names.
Oh.
It's
in your head.
Hurts, yes.
Who are you?
Tip of your tongue?
This is driving me insane.
Well, I know it's not right. I'm just saying Fred.
Fred.
Because I have no guess.
In
In Alice in Wonderland, do they ever say his name?
In the
In the animated movie?
animated? No.
Okay. Yeah, so there's no way I would know because I don't watch it. I just heard him as being the caterpillar.
It's a unique name. It's not like Bob or Fred.
It's definitely not Fred. I gotcha.
It's a very... I don't got it. It's like pain. This is painful for me because it's like, it's right there, but I don't got it. For some reason, A is sticking. Like, I think it starts with an A.
Abernathy?
What is that from?
Abernathy?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a thing. No, it is a thing. Dang it, now I want
Frank
to Google that.
Abernathy was the made-up name of the guy from Catch Me If You Can,
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
which is an entirely made-up story anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, for some
Well, we
reason.
gotta-
It's one of the made-up
You gotta
names
make
of
a-
Frank
I don't
choice.
have a name.
No
I
name.
don't have a name.
Teresa has no name.
Okay.
Nameless.
All right.
Mr. Caterpillar.
You're going to hear it,
So
and then you're
we've
probably going
got
to smack
Fred and
Mr. Caterpillar.
maybe something with an A.
Mr. Caterpillar.
So you're going away from something with an A and you're going to Mr. Caterpillar?
Something with an A or Mr. Caterpillar. Because you said he has
So
two names.
You want something
You
with
said
an
he
A?
has two names.
You want something with an A?
You said he has two names, so I can have two answers.
So you wanted something with an A? Okay.
Yes, something with an A.
All right.
I think he's trying to push you towards
Mr.
something with an A.
Caterpillar.
Your fourth regular round question from listener Chrissy A. How many levels are in the Pixar Palace parking structure?
Ooh.
And say
8?
that 3 times fast. Pixar Palace
No,
parking
no.
structure.
4?
It's more than 4.
I have no idea. I've never been in it.
7? 7 is my gut. I'm going
I'm
with
going
7.
with 8 because that was my first thought. And you're going to go with
Okay,
7.
7. Yep. You're going with 8.
All right. 7 and 8. And your bonus question tonight. Name the levels of the Pixar Palace parking structure.
No, they're different. I know there's a Bing Bong level.
There's got to be a Woody level. Is there a Buzz level? There's probably a Buzz level.
I bet you it's Woody and Buzz.
Oh, Woody and Buzz. There's the Incredibles level, isn't there?
Incredibles.
See, we haven't been over there enough recently. We've only been over
There's
there
gotta
one
be-
time since that parking structure is
Let me
opened.
think. Is there,
Is there a Monsters Inc. level?
sure.
Is there a Nemo level?
There's got it. Yeah, that was my other one was Nemo.
I'm trying to think of like the classic Pixar movies. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, there's 5. We need 3 more for yours and 2 more for mine. What'd you put in? Nothing?
No, I just finished writing the word incredible.
What are other like big movies from Pixar? I feel like I should know this.
Oh, Inside Out.
Inside Out.
Well, that's Bing Bong, but I feel like the emotions are there too, like joy and.
I don't know. And then
Is it maybe the names of the movies and not the characters?
there you go. Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo,
Toy Story. I know I swear there's a Bing Bong level. It's a pink.
Well, maybe
like
it's the Inside Out level, and Bing Bong is one of the characters that gets shown on it. And then, what other movies are we missing? I feel really dumb because I feel like there's some obvious ones that I'm just not thinking of.
You say, put them on your head.
Oh, WALL-E.
No,
that wasn't.
Coco.
Oh,
You don't think WALL-E is WALL-E Pixar? Or is that Disney Animation?
I can't remember.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I have 7 for me, so I'm good. And you have WALL-E with 8. Oh no, we could just cross out Bing Bong.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Because Bing Bong's Inside Out.
Okay, well, I think we have to call it time-wise.
Okay. Well, listeners, how do you think they did? How did you do listening at home? Stick around until after the discussion topic, and we're all going to find out together.
I'm looking at your book, and you sent us a copy of the volume 1. And
Thank you.
yes, thank you. And I have not had time to read it yet, but as we were sitting here, I was kind of flipping through it just to kind of see the format. And I see here that at the end of each of the chapters, you have a section, because of course the book, I'm sure we've mentioned it already, but the book is A Century of Powerful Disney Insights, 100 Years, Volume 1. And so one of the interesting things it looks like here is at the end of each chapter, you have some reflection questions for the reader to try to help them kind of direct them towards how they can apply some of these insights to their lives. How did you come up with that kind of idea?
You know, in all of my books,
actually,
I do that. And in my podcast, many of my podcasts and posts, I talk about souvenirs for you and your organization, is what I usually refer to it. Here, I've talked about them as ideas for the new century. In truth, as best I know, there are only 2 books that have been written. So we all know there are a bazillion books about Disney. And they canvas everything from Walt Disney to Disneyland to Walt Disney World. And
there's probably a book.
Oh, my goodness. In fact, I got to tell you, my birthday present this year was a book. It was the Disneyland Nickel.
Oh, ooh.
What is it? Nickel Guide?
The Nickel Tour.
Nickel Tour. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. It was the one book I hadn't gotten forever and a day. And I finally acquired a copy. Oh, there you are. There you go. There you go. And talk about, because here I am promoting a book that's out of print, but
yeah.
but it is dripping with detail and photos and images and postcard images and so forth. It's so cool. But there are books of all sorts. I have a library with 10 shelves of books on Disney.
Wow.
And yet there is only 2 that I know of that canvas all 100 years. The company put one out back in about D23 or around Christmas. It came out, I think, that celebrates 100 years. It is done topically. Mine is the second one, and it's done pretty much historically from beginning to the present. And I felt that was really important. But at the same time, I'm thinking, okay, so we're going to talk about the silly symphonies. So what? Who cares? What does that mean to me? I guess I can watch 1 or 2 of them on D23, but what does it really mean to me? Well, if you go to that chapter, you find that really Walt learned after he developed Mickey Mouse that you've got to continue to reinvent yourself. And he did it through new characters. So individuals like Donald Duck and the 3 Little Pigs and Goofy started showing up. He did it through new stories. So he created the whole Silly Symphonies experience where they could just do new things, and they came along with new technology. So color and the use of Technicolor, the use of the multi-plane camera, or all optical sound came out of Santa's workshop. They're all sorts of things. So at the end of that chapter, I say, okay, here are the ideas for the next century. Consider how you might make the magic come alive for you. How serious are you about making improvements to your field of endeavor? Whatever you do, whatever you're doing in life, how intentional are you about getting better at it? Second, for Walt, it was about improving stories, characters, and technology. What are the critical things you need to improve on? So that was them, but for me, what is it? And then finally, how can these improvements help you to stand out in your own field or industry? So in your own place in the world. Walt did his thing, but these ideas and concepts can apply back to your life if you think about how you can make it yours. So for me, let me just share with you a powerful story, example that came to me personally. About a month and a half before the book was published, I was tweaking some chapters about the New York World's Fair in 64 and 65. And during that time, Walt had the plane and he started working on Project X, which would Walt Disney World. And as I was writing this time period and thinking about it, I thought, wait a minute, how old was Walt Disney when he started work on Project X? And I realized he was my age, about 61, 62. I just turned 62. I should feel good about admitting that on a podcast, but I'm working on it. At any rate, I thought, okay, so what's your Project X, Jeff?
Yeah.
What's your next chapter? I know I go and I work out and, I go swim and I go to the gym and I see individuals my age and they've moved to retirement. That's fine. But what's their next project? What is Project X for them? What is Project X for you? You have to ask, what is it that's next? You got to keep growing. You keep building. Walt could have easily rested on his laurels. He didn't need to build Florida out.
That's true. Yeah.
By the way, the second thing he did at that time was he had always focused on training and developing his employees, but he also decided at that point he would build a permanent school of the arts, creative arts for artists, which ended up being Cal Arts, which ended up being the place where the next generation of artists came from. Mm-hmm. So if you like Pixar, John Lasseter and that old team, Brad Bird, everyone, they came from that first graduation school of Cal Arts. You like Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yeah.
Guess what? That came.
Yep.
All these people created a whole new generation. And that's because Walt decided at that point in his life, he was going to do two things: work on Project X and find a way to give back to the world around him. Yeah. Those are two really good lessons, not just if you're 62 like me and just had a birthday, but it's also just really good. It's a good message no matter where you are in life. How are you going to give back to the world around you? And what's your next Project X? So that's what we mean by ideas for the next century. There are so many lessons from the last 100 years that could be taken and made into, nobody thought the company was going to be what it is today, back in 1973, 50 years ago. And look where we are.
Well, and the thing too, to kind of like take a step back and think about too, what if Walt Disney wasn't born? What if he felt like a failure at a certain point in the, there's so many, the things that this one person being here set in motion, and he and his brother set in motion, is just mind-boggling when you really think of it. Because like you said, not only is it the company, but he started the school, which then somehow in turn continued to fuel exactly what he started. I mean, it's just, his legacy just lives on and on and on, and it's just touched and changed so many people. It's really just incredible when you kind of sit back and think that one little drop and all of the little rings that kind of
World of Color 1.
yes, and just the the impact of this one thing and how it's just every household, every child probably has heard of Disney. They may not know exactly that Disney was a person or what the whole story was, but they know Mickey Mouse or they know Goofy or Donald or whoever, and it's so wild to think of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are more individuals like that around us, even people listening to your podcast
Mm-hmm.
who will make an even bigger difference in this
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
But you gotta believe, you gotta be persistent, you gotta endure, you gotta take some of the heartbreak. And Walt Disney experienced heartbreak.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he also persisted and succeeded in the end.
So, Jeff, I have to ask, 100 years of a company is an awful lot of stuff to cover. And like you already have shared with everyone, it's now over 2 volumes of books. How does one even start trying to kind of gather the information, trying to kind of, you eat the elephant one bite at a time, of course, but how did you even, you get the idea, how do you even start getting the pen to the paper to kind of figure out the flow and just the overall feel and arc of the book that you want?
Well, to be honest, since I was with the Walt Disney Company in the 1990s, I have been in this frame of motion that everything that you see at Disney, translate that to what it means to others. And so I have escorted many people through the parks over the years and shown them something as simple as the partner statue in front of the castle and talked about what does that mean. It was, when it was created, a form of employee recognition. The top 3% of all employees received a Partners of Excellence award, and they received a small statue at a very big banquet. And that statue was the partner statue. So I don't see Mickey and Walt there. I see a way to recognize and a way to create symbols in your organization or in your culture that says, how do we remind people what excellence looks like? So that's just one example, but everything I have learned over the last 25, 30 years has been looking at all of this and saying, what does this mean? So it became, when I got to doing this book, I thought, okay, my problem is I could go on for days on Disneyland or the Magic Kingdom or something like that. But I've also got to cover victory through air power, which nobody knows about. And I've also covered this thing called television, and I've got to cover this thing called the Hyperion Studios. And I have, so Silly Symphony, all this, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. What does that mean? True life adventures. What does that mean? What is behind that? And what do I do to make that applicable? Because otherwise I'm just telling nice stories. I have to tell stories that help people take it and build from it and live from it and be inspired from it to move forward on it. So that's where my space lives a lot. And this was more a matter of sifting by the time I got to this book than it was about building from scratch.
Wow, that's really cool. And that's what I think is so neat about this book. I'm very, very excited to read it just because, of course, it spans the first 50 years of a company that's very near and dear to us. But just, I love how, like we've already kind of touched, how you wrap each chapter with things, reflection questions. So you can kind of, like you said, take that and apply it to your own life. Figure out, obviously we're not all building theme parks and we're not all the best animators or, we're not creating big giant things, but that doesn't mean what you're doing isn't important.
Yeah.
So I just think it's so cool that you can kind of take a little bit of Disney with you into your regular, your normal day to day and your normal, even if you're working a 9 to 5 and you're just there doing your thing, it's still important. You're still making an impact.
Yeah. I deal with people in all sorts of workplaces, in healthcare, in government, in hospitality arenas, in all sorts of walks of life. And these ideas have application no matter where you are, what you do, what level you are in an organization, whether you just are trying to figure out your own personal life and your own personal goals. So it's fun. It's fun. And I, to that end, I dedicated the book to Walt and Roy, because honestly, they lived a life that has brought so much happiness, so much joy to so many for so many years. And it is they've enabled new generations to come forth and build on those same kinds of ideas moving forward.
Now, kind of a weird philosophical question here. I feel like a lot of times, you can look back on somebody's life. Usually it's after they've passed or aren't with us anymore. And, we look at people like Walt and Roy, Steve Jobs, these people that have made contributions and kind of pushed the envelope. Do you think Walt and Roy knew so you're pulling these lessons from their actions and what they've did. Do you think in the moment when they were doing these things that they were aware of the impact they were going to have with the greater humanity, I guess? Or do you think it was one of those, like, in hindsight, like it just happened to work out and they picked the right things and were like, wow, they were brilliant? I guess how much was intentional versus how much was dumb luck?
Yeah, Walt speaks a lot about building his team and building a cadre of individuals who could really take the ball and run with it. But Walt's life ran short. It did not go like he had planned, and he succumbed to cancer far quicker than he thought it was going to happen. And Roy even more so, although he was ready to go into retirement when he finally finished Walt Disney World. But Walt, and that already comes into the end of this book, into the next part of the second volume, and there's a great story that is told by the day that, by the way, you talked about earlier about Mickey saying the show must go on. Dick Nunis was going to close Disneyland the day they found out that he had passed away that morning. And a call was put in, and Cardwalker called him back and said, open. He said, what message are we sending if we're opening that we don't care about the person who made this happen? And he said, I spoke to Lillian and she feels strongly that the show must go on. And so when I heard those words by Mickey in that show, that just made me think about it. But Van France, who helped create the original training and orientation and traditions programs of the company, Van France and others went over to the Disneyland Hotel later that day to go have a very long drink. And they're sitting there and they're trying to sort through everything that has happened and that's news, and they're in shock. In the early days, you've probably seen images of it. Go to Daveland, as you mentioned, Teresa, you can find it there. But in the early days, the Matterhorn at Christmas time had a big star on top of it, and it lit up and it actually rotated. And it was quite beautiful. Well, they're sitting there and they're looking at it. Of course, it is December. And they're looking at it and going, yeah, the star stopped rotating again. It's broken. And somebody said that I don't think that ever is going to really work. And Van France or somebody else in the room said, you wouldn't say that if Walt was here. Now, what happened in the years following was there was a great struggle to think through what Walt would have done. Mm-hmm. And so this WWWD, what would Walt do, kind of came out, and it it became problematic. And so you start looking at animated films that came out during this period, such as The Jungle Book, which did very well in the box office, but followed by the Aristocats, followed by Robin Hood, followed by others. And you start hearing the same voices in these cartoons. You start seeing repeat pieces of animation. So the dance scene in Robin Hood with Maid Marian and Robin Hood is actually based on the footage for Snow White dancing with the dwarfs, and and moreover, there's just this. It's just this feeling like we're repeating ourselves. And Ward Kimball was the one, of course, Ward Kimball, because he was so over the top and so unique. He said, if you really want to know what Walt would do, he would not do the same thing.
Yeah.
He would continually push outside the box and think something different and new. And yet the company was in an era. Again, here was Woodstock. Here was the hippie generation. Here was this polarization of cultures. And the company felt very much locked into a formula. And it's okay to have a formula, but it's not okay to be formulaic. And that created some problems, which then in the second volume we'll see ended up being with Roy E. Disney really rejecting what was going on, and ultimately Michael Eisner coming in. But this is a period that we're now going into where it's like, what would Walt do was not helpful to making the organization go to the next level.
Yeah. And it's one of those, if it was what would Walt do, and then they just jumped, they kind of, had the confidence that he had too, then maybe it would have been a different story. But I think it was just a lot of reflecting and thinking and overthinking and thinking again and they just kind of spun their wheels, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean,
well, nobody could be Walt, right? Walt was Walt.
Yeah.
Like nobody, even today, people go, oh, would Walt like Galaxy's Edge? Would Walt like this? And it's like, nobody knows what Walt would like. Yeah. Nobody's Walt.
Yeah. It's not the question to ask. Is the question Walt would have asked is what do people want? What do families want? What is the entertainment need? What can we do with technology to tell a better story and to engage and interact? And he'd use technology to do so. He'd constantly think of new stories. At that point, Roy Disney, really, even Roy, when at the loss of Walt, was thinking, okay, I don't know how many more animated films we could do. I think we're kind of gone through all the stories, gone through all the princesses, and, they couldn't see outside the box. And that became challenging in the years to come. It was interesting. In my last chapter, I talk about the 50th anniversary. And yes, I talked lovingly about Robin Hood, but really the company at 50 was struggling. And it was struggling on political issues, on social issues, on economic issues. Things were happening not long after Walt Disney World opened. Richard M. Nixon stood up in the Contemporary Resort, took questions from reporters and said, I am not a crook, and it was just kind of this sense of destabilization there. I remember a picture I still have it, I think, a picture from the AP press, aerial photo of the Disneyland parking lot during the energy crisis at that time, and cars not filling up that parking lot at that era. And it was worse at Walt Disney World. Mark Davis wanted to build the Western River Expedition and Railroad and all that kind of stuff. And they said, you know what? People are asking for Pirates. We're going to build a copy of Pirates, and not really a great one. Although there's some moments in that Pirates of the Caribbean, but it is not Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean.
No, yeah.
It is not your father's Pirates. So at any rate, these kind of things were kind of challenges and struggles, and where they were sitting, and films. And we now go into a whole series. The Love Bug came out. It was wildly popular, and it really did connect with people. So what are we going to do? We're going to build 4 more love bug stories. Herbie goes here, Herbie goes there, Herbie goes bananas, Herbie goes to Monte Carlo. And I mentioned this because you would have thought in 1973, yeah, I'm not sure about the future of where this company's going. It's doing some things really great, but it's having struggles in other things. We're going to later see that Star Wars comes out and it's not, it should have been a Disney film. And yeah. So you see this kind of with social and economical and political things. Well, fast forward 50 more years, and we're here at the 100th anniversary. And what are we doing? We're kind of struggling. We're kind of struggling how to make an anniversary out of this. We're struggling with social and economic and political issues. That's okay. We'll get
lots
through
of
it.
Sequels.
And lots of sequels.
Yeah.
But hang in there, because the next 50 years may be even more phenomenal. Just believe and see where it goes. So
Jeff,
that's my hope.
So Jeff, I have one final question to kind of wrap this up with you tonight. Was there any one particular story while you were putting this together that just was either stood out to you more? Was it extra meaningful? Whether it was, we can go either the full 100-year span or just the first 50, since that's what we're talking about in volume 1 here. But is there anything that kind of just really, really got to you in some way or another?
Well, I will tell you, I was 10 days out from completing this, and it had already gone through my first run through with the editor. Mm-hmm. And I felt like something needed to be shared. In the section on, I covered the 1964-65 World's Fair, but in that conversation, when I get to It's a Small World, and I felt like that actually needed a chapter in and of itself, because It's a Small World and Haunted Mansion and Pirates, they all get their own chapters because they are their signature to the organization. Mm-hmm. But the story I share in That Small World, I talk a little bit about how it came in at the last moment, but then I talk about the Sherman brothers and the fact that there was actually a tension between the brothers. They never showed it to anyone. But the minute work was done, they didn't associate with themselves. They didn't live far, but the cousins didn't play together. The brothers didn't do anything after hours together. They were perfect and professional during the day, but there was a tension. And it's ironic because, here are the people who, another phrase, another title for It's a Small World is A Prayer for Peace. And yet, ironically, they struggle. Yeah. But that's not what really got me. Was about 10 days out, I said, there's another chapter that needs to be written. And if I can just share that few paragraphs with you.
Yeah, of course.
It's unlikely that Walt and Roy knew much of the Sherman brothers' differences, but they knew something about the frustration siblings could share. And many working close with them were caught in the middle. Those moments were sometimes painful, vocal, and loud. Walt's longtime secretary, Dolores Vogt, would note of such occasions, quote, "The language is terrible," end of quote. As John Hench explained, Roy's great ambition in life, I suppose, was to stay out of debt. And it was Walt's method in life to keep Roy constantly in debt, end of quote. In short, Walt wanted money and independence to act on his own and not be beholden to a board or shareholders. WED became that for him. That was the original Imagineering group. And by the time the World's Fair came into production, there would be 300 employees reporting up to him. These and other financial arrangements came to a head, and the tension was so palpable that each brother was going through others, particularly Cardwalker, to communicate. This was nothing new to the world of show business, but it was leaving a wedge in the relationship, heightened by threats made by Walt's lawyer. Eventually tiring of this, both brothers agreed to better negotiate. A key turning point was when Roy took the higher road, entered a negotiations meeting, and reminded all, quote, "None of us would be here in these offices if it hadn't been for Walt." all your jobs, all the benefits you have, all come from Walt and his contributions. End of quote. In time, a settlement, largely in favor to Walt, was realized. As Roy's birthday approached, Walt sent Roy an Indian peace pipe with a card. Quote, "It is wonderful to smoke the pipe of peace with you again. The clouds that rise are very beautiful." Roy put that pipe atop a large portrait of Walt that hung in his office. Quote, "We've made peace," quote, he explained to a visitor. Just one moon and one golden sun. And I think that the values and the fundamental truths of this book are that family, optimism, perseverance, hope, they matter. Whatever Walt brought in that suitcase when he came out to California, it was based on those dreams of family, optimism, hope, and perseverance. That's the message with the Walt Disney Company.
That's awesome. And
I don't even
what?
know what we could say at that point.
And the thing that's so cool and so special about that story is the story and, the story behind the story and the bigger story of it. But that's something that I've never even heard before. That was a brand new story. So that makes it even more kind of amazing because, like, we started with this interview, we talk about how there's tons of books and there's all sorts of stuff because people are fascinated by this company, by different pieces of this company. Yet there are still so many meaningful stories that have not been shared and told. So I think that's really even more special. And thank you for including this in the book so we can, share that story with others so others can take that with them as well.
Well, now I'm really excited to read the book to figure out all the other nuggets.
And aren't we glad that Walt didn't give Roy a big petrified rock?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Because he gave one to his wife and she didn't really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's true.
Poor Lillian.
She's like, you know where this would go? This would look real nice in your park.
So, Jeff, for people who want to pick up the book, for people who want to follow you online, and well, even better, first question, when is volume 2 coming, or do you have a date?
Well, yeah, it is going to come out in spring of next year. Now, I will follow the Disney tradition of making spring something that goes all the way until June 23rd. But I do think it'll actually be much earlier than that. And sure. It will be during the 100th anniversary of the. And honestly, one of the problems with writing the last part of the book is we haven't lived through the 100th anniversary.
That's true.
And we could use a few happily ever afters to be added to this year. So let's see what the next couple of months show. And in the meantime, I'll pull all the rest of it together. And yeah, I'm very excited for what lies ahead, and pray that it's not longer than what it took to write the first. Because one thing I really want is there are thousands of people who have made Disney a reality. But I certainly want to honor some very key people who played a role and not be neglectful of their contribution. When you see the cover, you see on the cover in the 100 titles and things that happened during those 50 years. It'll look different for the next 50. But I didn't want iWorks to be forgotten. I didn't want Fun and Fancy Free, which is actually a chapter, and it's not about the movie. It's about the 40s. What a pain that they were all but fun and fancy free, unlike the movie. So those things are just so apart. So Disney Insights, DisneyInsights.com, Disney Insights, our podcast, Disney Insights, my YouTube channel. Just go to Disney Insights. Awesome. And while you're there, make sure you take some time to go to DL Weekly, because let me tell you, let me add my testimonial to this. When I want to know what's going on at Disneyland, I listen to DL Weekly. because it's all I could do to pay attention to what's going on over here in Florida.
Yeah.
But you two, you got it nailed. I can get it down to the most recent popcorn bucket with you two and know what's going on. And it really is. It keeps me up to date with the happiest place on earth. So I want to thank you because you guys do a fantastic job with DL Weekly.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And I think that makes it like it's even more full circle and just amazing to me that you are a listener and you're doing all these amazing things. And so it's so cool to me that we, can kind of bring it around so you can be on this side of the microphone with us and share all of your amazing stuff too. I think that's just so cool. So thank you again for your time tonight. I look forward to I was excited about this book before, but I seriously am probably going to, instead of watching an episode before going to bed, I think I'm going to read a couple of chapters.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Looks like we're coming in for a landing, gang. But please stay listening until trivia comes to a stop. And then you can walk to the nearest exit. Thanks for listening to the 8th wonder of the world, DL Weekly.
Welcome back to Trivia Land, where we are going to find out the answers to tonight's questions.
Because we probably did not give them.
Ooh, this was a rough week.
See what happens when we're positive.
You were optimistic, and you got some tough ones.
Okay.
Listeners were not kind.
Well, what were the answers?
Let's find out together, shall we? Your first listener submitted question from listener Tara F. In Coca-Cola Corner, along with soda bottles, there are several other vintage and antique items, such as an outdoor thermometer shaped like a jumbo Coca-Cola bottle, glass straw dispensers, and a soda jerk hat. Among these is a metal plate with a painting of a fancy-dressed woman holding an empty glass to her closed lips. She sits at a small glass table in front of a wall of soda taps. On the table is a small note. What does the note say? And I gave you a hint that the note says a slogan that is reminiscent of another brand. Tag said, Coca-Cola, I'm loving it. Teresa said, the happiest soda on earth. The correct answer we were looking for was good to the last drop.
Oh!
Which you would also recognize from Maxwell House Coffee.
Maxwell House. Mm-hmm. That's good.
And in the brief amount of research that I've done, there is conflicting evidence as to who came up with the slogan first. So I am interested to do more of a deep dive on this one just for my own personal knowledge. Who came up with that slogan first? I'm intrigued now. So yeah, somebody said it first. Good to the last drop. Was it Coca-Cola or Maxwell House? Your second listener submitted question from listener Tara F. The Piston Cup display over in DCA in Carsland states that the Hudson Hornet achieved more wins than any other racer in 1952 with 27 wins. What do these numbers reference in the real world? Tag said that 2/7/1952 is the birth date of John Lasseter. And Teresa said that there are 27 Pixar films, and they were all made at the address 1952 Street.
Or Driver Avenue or Parkway.
Circle.
The correct answer that we were looking for. 27 is the number of NASCAR Grand National races won by Hudson Hornets in 1952.
Interesting.
Wow.
Also, 1952 is the year of production for the animated short film Susie the Little Blue Coupe, which is one of the favorite Disney cartoons of director John Lasseter and the inspiration for putting the eyes on the windshield.
Well, there you go. I knew John Lasseter was involved somehow. Hey, I gotta take my little, I gotta take my wins when I can. My tiny wins that don't matter.
And your third regular round question from listener Donna S. What is the name of the caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland? Tag said Fred. And Teresa very confidently and astutely said something with an A.
All sorts of confidence there, yeah. I was banging my head against the microphone.
And the correct answer that I was looking for was something with an A, Absalom.
Absalom.
What was the other name?
or Russell if you're reading the book.
Oh my gosh, if you would have said Russ as your throwaway
Instead of Fred,
answer.
that would have been hilarious. I would have literally stumbled into that one.
Yeah, you
Yes. And your fourth and final regular round question from listener Chrissy A. How many levels are there on the Pixar Pals parking structure? Tag said 7.
Since we can only figure out.
Teresa said 8. And both of you are overachievers, with the correct answer being 6.
Oh.
Which means that we have too many
We're
answers
over,
for the
yeah.
next one.
We're
Bonus
overachiever
question tonight. Name those levels of the parking structure. And eventually I gave you a hint that you don't need names of characters, but names of movies. You gave answers including Inside Out, Toy Story, Incredibles, Monsters Incorporated, Finding Nemo, and Coco. You also said Buzz and Woody.
That's Toy Story. We changed it around.
You narrowed it down to Toy Story. Okay, good point.
Yep.
And Wall-E.
Oh, and Wall-E.
and
Sorry, I
Wall-E.
did not write that one down. My apologies.
Well, it doesn't matter because we got too many levels anyway.
All right. The correct answer that I was looking for was Level 1, Incredibles. Level 2, Coco. Level 3, Cars. Level 4, Monsters, Inc. Level 5, Finding Nemo. Level 6, Inside Out.
So we got 5 out of 6.
Toy Story.
Well, the whole structure.
I suppose.
Or,
No, it's not.
you know what? Is there a Toy
There's a
Story
Toy
people
Story lot.
in? Oh yes.
There's a Toy Story lot.
Yeah. Now that you say that,
I like
that's
how we were
duh.
also trying to remember popular Pixar movies and somehow forgot Cars.
Considering we were just talking.
Right after we just talked about Cars Land. Jeez. Well, that was a bust.
Yeah, we didn't do so hot.
It was a big old bust.
You know, it's the listeners and the way that they just come up with the toughest stuff.
Man.
And they're geniuses or fiends. I'm not sure which.
Bust.
Or fiendish geniuses. Speaking of which, listeners, are you feeling like one of those fiendish geniuses? Do you have one of those really tough questions that you'd like to hear them bang their heads against a wall trying to figure out the right answer? Well, if you've got that perfect question and you'd like to hear it get asked on the air, feel free to send that in to trivia@dlweekly.net.
Well, we will be back next week with more Disneyland news and information.
Until then, go out and enjoy the parks.
And thank you to our editor, Sidel, for masterfully editing this episode and making sure all the show notes are posted.
You only did that so you'd prove that you could read it.
Please remain seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop and the doors have opened. Then collect your belongings, watch your head, and step carefully from the episode. On behalf of all of our crew, thanks for traveling with us. And we hope you have a happy and memorable visit here at DL Weekly.